Oasis Audio presents God's Love for the Rest of Us by Vince Antonucci, read for you by Dean Gallagher. Chapter 1. Dead People. There are dead people who are not fully dead. They're kind of alive. They're like walking dead people, and they're everywhere. It seems like every day there are more people who walk around like they're fully alive, but really, they're mostly dead. I'm talking about real life, but this does also happen to be what's going on in a movie called Warm Bodies. Warm Bodies is set in a zombie apocalypse. Footnote: I know that zombie movies are dark and weird, and that might make you uncomfortable. It might make me uncomfortable. But our culture's obsession with zombies may hint at a recognition that there's something dead about us. It may help people to realize that what we need is new life. Stick with me on this movie illustration and you'll see what I mean. The main character is a zombie named R. He used to be human and alive, but now he's a zombie and mostly dead, and all he can remember of his name is the letter R. R finds himself wanting to eat humans, but not only for physical sustenance. When he eats people, he experiences their memories and it makes him feel alive for a moment. Really, what R wants is to feel alive. One day, R sees a group of humans and he finds himself attracted to a girl named Julie. Footnote: not the way I'm attracted to Krispy Kreme donuts. He doesn't want to eat her, he wants to date her. The attraction is romantical, as Mike Wazowski from the kids' movie Monsters, Inc. might say. I know, first a zombie movie, now a monster movie, up next, rabid gerbil movie. Later, when Julie is distracted by something, R eats her boyfriend, which is one way to do it. The girl you like has a guy already? Eat him. R's attraction to Julie grows, and soon he rescues her from the other zombies. To keep her safe, he takes her back to the abandoned airplane he lives in at the airport that is filled with hordes of zombies, and there are more of the undead arriving there every day. That's how the movie begins. But I want to be clear. A few paragraphs ago, I was talking about real life. There are people who walk around like they're alive, but they're mostly dead. They are walking, living, dead people. And there are more all the time. Turns out, it's always been that way. You will surely die. The Bible says it started back in the Garden of Eden. Whether we take the story literally or figuratively, either way, God is teaching us something foundational about the human condition. We're told that God created two people, Adam and Eve, and He gave them paradise to live in. He gave them only one rule. Isn't that interesting? When God had the world the way He wanted it, there was only one rule. God is not into rules. God told them not to eat the fruit of one particular tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. If they did, they would die. You've probably heard the story. Adam and Eve were tempted, they screwed up and did the one thing they weren't supposed to do. God had said the penalty for that was death. If someone made a movie today out of the story of Adam and Eve, this would be the point where you might get excited because you're about to see two people die. You'd start to wonder, how does God kill people? And I can't wait to see what kind of special effects they're going to use to show them dying. Maybe it'll be like that scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where the people kind of melt before our eyes. You'd be like, dude, pass the popcorn. Adam and Eve are about to get toasted. But if this were a movie, we'd be disappointed because it doesn't look like anything happened to Adam and Eve. God reprimanded them for what they'd done, and that's bad. They had to leave the garden paradise they'd been given, and that's bad. But they didn't melt before our eyes, and the earth didn't swallow them up. Adam didn't say, "Oh, this is the big one, I'm coming to join you, Elizabeth." Sanford and Son reference for the over 40 crowd. Footnote: if you're under 40, you can just ignore me, or you can insert a Saved by the Bell reference. Your call. The big death scene didn't happen in this Adam and Eve movie. On the surface, the consequences don't seem tragic. But Adam and Eve were dead. When they ate that fruit, when they talked to God later, when they walked out of the garden, they were dead. They continued to walk around like regular people, but they were dead. We are like the dead. And it's not just Adam and Eve, it's everyone since. We're all walking dead. The Bible talks about this quite a lot, like in Isaiah 59, verse 10. We are like the dead. You may be wondering, what do you mean there are walking dead people? And in what way were Adam and Eve dead? And what does the Bible mean about us being dead people? Honestly, I'm not sure if I understand all this completely. In fact, I bet I don't. But I think I at least get parts of it. And I think the reality is this. We're all dead in all kinds of ways. Emotionally dead. For instance, I think many of us are dead, or at least pretty dead, emotionally. Can you remember moments in your life when you died emotionally? I can. I grew up in a pretty crazy home. My father was a professional poker player in Las Vegas, a gambling addict, and a con man. Footnote. Today, after growing up completely not as a Christian or churchgoer, I'm a pastor of a church in Las Vegas. Yep, the very place where my father ruined his life and hurt so many people. When you give your life to God, He will write an amazing story with it. My father was often in trouble, and our family was constantly running from the consequences. He was also kind of an abusive jerk. One of my earliest memories is a night when I was maybe 5 years old. I was asleep but woke up when I heard yelling downstairs. I ran down and saw my father in my mother's face, yelling. I was afraid of what my father might do to my mother, so I tried to pull him away from her. I couldn't move him, but I think my attempt embarrassed him. So instead of doing anything to her, he kicked me into the corner of the room and went after her most prized possession. It was the piano that her mother, who had died when my mom was in college, had left to her. He ripped a piece off it, threw it at my mom, and stormed out of the house. I looked and saw my mother lying on the floor, clutching the piece of the piano, crying. I crawled over and tried to console her. That night, I didn't die physically, just like Adam and Eve didn't die physically that day in the garden. But I did die emotionally. I was in deep emotional pain, and I thought to myself, I don't ever want to feel this way again. I would rather not feel anything than have to feel this way. I'd rather be dead than have to experience this again. And I made a vow to myself that I would no longer care. I wouldn't get close to friends. I wouldn't trust my parents. My ability to experience the emotions I was intended to experience was seriously handicapped that night. I became a walking, living, dead person. How about you? Do you have moments when you died emotionally? Relationally dead. I also think many of us are dead, or at least pretty dead, relationally. Somewhere along the line, someone or something killed our ability to trust people and have healthy relationships. As you can imagine, some of my father's actions did this to me. And I think even just moving a lot put some limitations on my ability to develop strong relationships. There have been lots of other things too. Friends who didn't turn out to be what they seemed, girlfriends who did something behind my back. All of it led me to die relationally. How about you? Perhaps you had a spouse who took vows committing to you forever, but forever turned out to be a lot shorter than you ever would have imagined. Or you had this coworker you trusted, but he or she completely broke that trust by taking credit for your work or stealing an account that should have been yours. Or maybe it was a parent who wasn't there, or a boyfriend who said, "I love you," but he was just trying to get something from you. Whatever, whoever it was, you've learned not to put your trust in people. Your heart has grown hard and cold. And the result is that you're sitting here today, dead.